Hey there, my name is the Gaudy Jackal and welcome to Nova Drift. So Nova Drift is a game by Chimeric and Pixel Jam, and it's really new. It's in early access and there's a load of planned updates, but what's amazing is it already feels like a really full game. It's a kind of an arcade style, very neon, very bright shoot 'em up, which is really nice. You play as a bioluminescent ship. You're going to see a lot of stuff here straight away, which is actually just a bit of a lot. But I am going to reset my progress. I've been playing a little bit of the game just to really get like a good feel for if it's, I suppose good is the best word for it. And now everything is unlocked. So you're playing an endless spree. You kill everything basically. We're going to not put on practice because practice is terrible. And honestly, the best way to show it to you is to get right into it. Now, given that we're at the start, the game has a little bit of meta progression, same as you would expect from, I guess, a lot of games, honestly. A lot of unlocks that you'll maintain between runs for different skills and different skill upgrade trees, all different things that you're going to see over the course of the run anyway. And there we are. So as we get more and more, we'll be able to get more diverse builds, more focused builds, actually, bits and pieces like that. But you'll see a lot of those things as I go on with the series. So first of all, I got to pick my weapon. So when you kill enemies, you get experience, you get an upgrade, same as usual. And you also have rerolls. So if I don't like any of these, I can reroll my choices. Now I have a maximum number of rerolls. It starts at 4, and that'll go up over the course of my meta progression. But I'm going to take Split Shot, just because it's the most straightforward and honestly doesn't require me to think too much. Especially in the early stages when I have limited upgrades, it's a little bit easier to go with. Some of the there's some really amazing builds that you can do, honestly, but a lot of them require some of the later upgrades to really get off the ground. So what I'm going to do with this game is I'm going to take, I'd say if I can get towards like wave 100, you'll see what happens at wave 100 if you haven't already. I'm going to see if I can get to wave 100, and if I can get to wave 100, I'll call that a successful run, quote unquote. And if I can't, then, well, it's a failed run. So there's got a lot of different choices of body type here. So your next upgrade after your weapon, hang on, I'm just going to take a drink. Delicious tea. So you've got a lot of upgrade choices after body, after weapon even, sorry, for body. You've got the ones I have available to me now are Stealth, Engineer, and Sentinel. So these are when you're not firing or thrusting, you stealth. There's a few other various upgrades, but there's the main part of it. Engineer is for a drone-based build where you get you get extra limits in your constructs, and Sentinel is, as you can imagine, for higher shields. We're going to reroll this in the hopes of finding Assault. Perfect, which gives you increased rate of fire, weapon projectile velocity, and lower spread, which is honestly phenomenal with Split Shot. We're also going to look to go towards a little bit of homing, preferably, and probably some extra multi-shot. And from there, I'm going to focus mainly on defensive upgrades, because once I've found so far that once you get towards like wave 50, wave 60, something will blow you up and you'll have absolutely no idea what it is, which is a bit of an unfortunate aspect of the game. It's I'm going to level up actually first. So now your shields, there's a lot of different options with shields, actually, and this one kind of comes down to your preference and also maybe a little bit playstyle if you're looking for something very specific. I really like, where is it? Warp. Warp is one of the ones that you have unlocked from the start as well. So Halo is your shield damages enemies, but that drains your shield, and Temporal slows enemies and projectiles while it's in your shield. Effect radius. Effect radius is something we'll definitely get to in a second. But Warp is when you're destroyed, you teleport in distance and then create a pulse on entry and exit, which deals 400 damage, which is quite a sizable amount. It's got one of the lower cooldowns compared to the rest of the shields, with the exception maybe of Amp. And it's got a reasonable durability of 90, whereas things like Temporal have 65. This puts me at a solid baseline. So now you can see a ring around my shield when I fire, with a little node at the end. So the node, the one I'm firing at now, that will, if my shield breaks, it will teleport me to that node. And I could probably take a bunch of damage to demonstrate it now, while the screen isn't too cluttered. But like, it will inevitably get triggered repeatedly over the course of the game. And so I'm going to be looking to augment that with a lot of different upgrades. And now you're looking at the main upgrade tree. This can seem a little bit overwhelming at first, absolutely, but there's a lot of really cool stuff here, and every one of these upgrades all have their own separate upgrade trees, and that's going to populate this substantially, and also make it more difficult to find a very focused build. And that's one of the beauties that I find about Nova Drift, is the fact that it's a little bit of a focused idea and a lot of adapting on the fly. So I'm going to take Rate of Fire first. It's just, I find obviously the rate of fire on this is phenomenal, but a lot of the upgrades that I'm going to be taking later on are like minus 5% rate of fire and minus 10% rate of fire, and I mean the base rate of fire for this is actually grand, just like never a problem. And it also unlocks war stacks, I believe it's called. And I don't want to, like, my rate of fire I want to even out, but a lot of the other things I want to try and focus down a specific path. You'll see a lot of the later upgrades, there's none here really right now, which is actually fine. So I'm going to take targeting, which just increases or adds to the weapon a little bit of projectile targeting. But you're going to see later on a lot of the upgrades have little minuses to them. So minus 5% rate of fire, minus 10% weapon velocity, damage, plus spread, minus spread, a few bits and pieces like that. And they'll play a lot of a part in how well your weapon scales. It's most important, I find, in like really, really focused weapon builds or with specific weapons. You can see my weapon shots are kind of curving here. So this would be the first example of exactly that, volley. So it's great because you get extra weapon projectiles, but you lose weapon size and velocity. You get bonus spread, and you get minus on blast radius and weapon damage for projectiles. So yeah, it's a bit scary if you choose to go down that path. That said, you get to fill the screen with bullets, and I want to do that. So I'm going to take velocity, absolutely. And then focus fire. So that'll reduce our spread somewhat and also unlock for us Fusillade. Fusillade, I'm never 100% sure how to say it, and Fusillade is exactly what we want. Fusillade like doubles your bonus projectiles, your base weapon projectiles. So it starts with 3, so we're looking at 6 plus 2 is 8, as well as the fact that we'll be taking guidance, which will add an extra 2. So he melted, he absolutely melted. And that's one of the beauties of guidance, is you just have homing, and that means if you've got a little bit of spread, it's really not too bad. And that's also why I took focus fire, is just to really, really have that focus shot. I'm going to take velocity for the extra damage, because once I start to look into the guidance tree, I'm going to end up with a bunch of mods that reduce my damage slightly. By the time this build is finished, in my experience with something similar to it, I've always ended up with around 10 damage per shot, which really isn't a lot, honestly. I would love to see that if I could get like 13, 15, but I found again, like the minus 20% damage from projectiles, although this doubles base weapon projectiles and +1, so I end up with somewhere around 10 to start with. Now, of course, I'll be getting Warpath, which gives me 0.75% total rate of fire and thrust for each stack, up to a maximum of 30% that I get a stack whenever I kill an enemy, which, as you can imagine, I hope to be doing relatively quickly. And I'm going to focus a lot more on, as you can see, I'm already like a sea of bullets. This is the kind of build that would do a Tohou game proud. These are probably the worst enemies that I can face, because they've got massive armor on the segments, and it's really, really hard to focus down the heads. But the early stages of it really aren't too bad. Asteroids, if you encounter them, can drop experience, but so like, yeah, those ones did there. But I haven't found like anything specific about an asteroid that's different to say, oh, this one drops experience. Hang on, I gotta cough. Super unprofessional. So I'm going to be taking guidance. Now, this is what I meant about when I took rapid fire, and also there's another upgrade in there that I definitely want for taking rapid fire, but guidance lowers your rate of fire and your weapon velocity. So for the most part, what I'm going to be focusing on with this build is a lot of homing, a lot of projectiles, and a high rate of fire. And then I'm going to kind of let damage go to the wayside. The intention with that is that if I can hit with all of my bullets, then the weapon damage won't matter quite as much. And there's a couple of upgrades that I won't have the luxury of getting to at the moment. Things like siege weaponry and core shielding, which will reduce self-damage, but a lot of those things I'll get upgrades in later, and playing without the upgrades is just like a nice way of kind of getting used to all those things. And here are our big octopus boys. The small one is fine, honestly, like not a problem, and the big one fires a giant energy laser that does massive amounts of damage if you stay in it, and I am absolutely not going to do that. One of the really, really cool things about the game is, so Chimeric is like a one-man studio, which is honestly amazing. A game like this and of this size and with this amount of depth, you'll see a lot more colors as the series goes on. You'll see a lot more flashing lights. You'll see a lot of different enemy types and upgrades and those things. I'm going to take Warpath here. You'll see a lot of various changes and like really, really amazing things. And one of the really, really strange things about this being in early access is it feels like a full game. Honestly, it really does. And the developer is really, really dedicated to making sure that the game feels phenomenal and is as robust as possible. There's a roadmap available online on his itch.io website. I think it's under Pixel Jam for there, but I think it was published through Pixel Jam. And there's some amazing stuff like wild mods, which are like not randomized because I think they're designed, but really rare mods that have massive impacts on your builds that should only show up like once over the course of an entire run. And a giant beam weapon, exactly like the ones that those guys have been using, that you like Celestial, it's not the Celestial Lance, I think it's called like the Celestial Beam, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it honestly, everything on the roadmap, every suggestion that's there, it all just looks absolutely amazing. And I'm really excited to be able to play through the game as it is now in its current state, which honestly like does feel like a full game, and also be able to see it as it grows, as it implements. So what I did there earlier was I took magnitude, and magnitude increases my weapon size and my weapon damage, so I can hopefully hit with more of my projectiles. And also because, like I said, I'm going to be taking things like guidance later on, it is better to just hit these guys in the back. I don't know why I'm hitting them in the shields. I'm going to be taking things like guidance, and that's going to reduce my damage a little bit more. You can see that I'm at 12. If you can see, it's quite small. 12 damage per projectile versus 13 that I was at earlier. And so if I take... first of all, I'm going to take Singular Strike. This is going to give me damage and blast radius for the central projectiles and also size for the central projectiles. So the middle ones are going to be a bit bigger, and that's kind of important because once I get to some smaller enemies, and some of the later bosses are really, really small enemies, especially the Wave 100 boss, and he moves around a lot, I want to be able to hit with as many projectiles as possible, obviously, but if I can't hit with them all, then at the very least, my central one. And so yeah, like this is Nova Drift. It's bright, and I mean, I think should definitely come with a bit of a seizure warning, especially once I get into the likes of explosive builds, things with grenades and like rocket drones, fusillade. If you choose to go through it, it's all like a lot. So this is our first real boss. He's a big circular boy. Fires out a lot of beams from each of the sides, and these here, so I think if I, just to demonstrate like a really, really cool quality of life feature, those do substantial amounts of damage. I would highly recommend avoiding them. If you stay on the outside of the boss, I actually need to for here anyway, eventually these little the nodes on the inside, the white ones. Oh, also, I can't believe I haven't addressed this already. You can screen wrap, and bullets can't, which is a massive part of this game. So it will fill the screen with bullets, like absolutely fill them. And oh, I can also demonstrate shield warp here. So that's how shield warp works. And I died. Fabulous. Oh, cool upgrades. So that was a complete waste of my time. That was terrible. I didn't expect to warp straight through him. But I unlocked a couple of things. So every time you die, your score is converted to points, and you unlock a few different things that will help contribute towards the next run. So I unlocked Magnetism, which is technically like a super mod, but not quite. Just a standard increase for power-up attractions. Cargo Trains, which are going to be really, really relevant to a lot of the later runs. And also Salvo. So that was really, really, really unfortunate. But I'm going to go again, absolutely. A few more of these different challenge modes we're going to unlock as the game goes on as well. And I'm going to go for that build again. I just think I fucked up royally. There's absolutely no reason for that to happen. And it's a shame because it's a pretty cool boss, and it's got a massive density explosion, like a really, really high density explosion at the end. And I denied that. Okay, so I am probably going to reroll. I feel like torrent builds are still kind of bad. Split shot, savage. Torrent builds are still kind of bad, in my opinion, or at the very least, I'm kind of bad with them, and so I wasn't going to take it. yeah, I've found that Torrent plays a little bit like Split Shot. So if I was just going for like that build upgrade path, then it's not phenomenally different. But what you do with Torrent is completely opposite to Split Shot. You find with Split Shot, you want to stay as far away as possible. Well, I suppose like a medium range so that you can hit everything. This is unfortunate. I'm probably not going to get Assault. Oh, I got Assault. Never mind. That's your YouTuber luck right there for you. Yeah, you want to stay like medium range with Split Shot just so you can get like some homing, but also be safe enough that you're not going to get hit with explosions and mines, enemy shields, things like that. And with Torrent, you have to be like point blank. This is our cargo train. Takes the most damage of the head and then drops these little cargo boxes that we destroy, and can drop me either rerolls, they can drop me massive amounts of experience, or a super upgrade where I flash with all the colors of the rainbow and every one of my ship systems are augmented and improved drastically. So I don't have any rerolls, so I'm kind of stuck with one of these three. And I really love the color of Reflect, so I'm going to take Reflect. Now, the way Reflect works is it's got this massive effect radius, which is this here. And it also reflects projectiles, as the name would imply. And then I'm going to take Targeting. Oh, I've stockpiled a whole bunch of upgrades. This is great. I'm going to take Homing Strike. Okay, so first of all, Reflect. There's a massive effect radius, and any enemy that shoots a bullet within that effect radius, if any bullet that hits my shield actually is reflected, and if an enemy is within the effect radius, they take 900% damage from that projectile. So it's pretty substantial. The issue with Reflect is it's got a really, really low durability, something like 65. So it's... I haven't found a lot of success with it, but I haven't played around with it enough yet, I feel. So I'm going to take Homing Strike here, and this is going to add 2 little baby butt shots, and they have like really, really reduced damage. You can see that they do 3 instead of anything else. But they also have unreasonable homing. And go a long way towards hitting that, like filling the screen with bullets type thing. They're also really nice for taking out well, enemies that are off screen, actually. It's nice. But also really nice for taking out hazardous projectiles, things like those mines up there, if they would ever focus them. Just because you don't need to focus really, really heavily on them. And also they'll give you a bit of an idea of where enemies are. One of the other frustrations that I have with Nova Drift is sometimes enemies will just fire in from off screen, and there's a particular enemy type that like that will happen with, and it's gonna be a bit of a problem. I'm gonna take Regeneration, just a little bit of defense here. So Regeneration increases my hull regeneration by like 20%. Oh, and also I can't believe I've forgotten to show this so far. This is why I take homing, because clearly I can't aim. There's also a stat screen. It's a bit information dense, definitely. And some of it is a bit iffy. Spread arc for your weapon being 14.72 degrees, targeting being 12 degrees a second, size and blast radius modifiers and the velocity, they're all just a bit like, I'm not really sure what 14 degrees is yet. But that said, it's also really fantastic for finding out how much damage you're doing. So if I take... Actually, I don't have the option here. Oh, if I take Volley, yeah. And then check it, my damage has gotten from 16 down to 12.8. Now, the game rounds all of those damage to whole numbers. So if you are at, like, I think it's from 6 upwards, it rounds up, and then from 6 downwards, or from 5 downwards, rather, it rounds down. Oh, nice. I'm melting this guy. This is his giant snake, like space snake attack. The ball does reasonable amounts of damage, and especially when it explodes, and these guys do consistent damage the whole time. So I got a reroll out of that, which is actually fabulous. I'm going to take probably Focus Fire here first. And then once I get Fusillade, I'm going to look down the path of... see, the thing is, I'm pretty offensively set. Unless I take a bunch of damage downgrades, but even then, damage downgrades that I'm going to be taking are going to be... do I want Velocity or Magnitude? I kind of want Snipe. I do want Splinter. Yeah, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take Splinter. You're going to see Splinter really, really soon. It's absolutely phenomenal. Those also do damage. They don't do that big damage to me, but they have massive knockback. But they do absolutely insane damage to enemies. They one-shot bosses if they hit them, which is great because some of the bosses, like the Juggernaut, just as the name implies, do not take damage. Especially with a build like this, I guess they're susceptible to like really, really big continuous hits or substantial amounts of burn damage, and this weapon just doesn't do that, at least with this build and configuration, which is a bit unfortunate. I mean, I know there's a balance point to be struck with, like, if you're looking for purely optimal gameplay, that is. But then again, I just really enjoy having lots of bullets on the screen. So I'm going to take hull strength, or maybe shield durability first, actually. But then I kind of prefer the upgrades to hull strength, so I'm going to take that. So an extra 20% hull durability, and what a terrible introduction. Sorry about that. What a terrible introduction to the game systems. So at the bottom, you'll see my health and my shield, red and blue, respectively. Bunch of cargo trains, too. Red and blue, respectively. And my hull, as I increase it, it's just going to increase that bar. It's very straightforward stuff. Fabulous. So yeah, I really want Splinter, and I also really want... probably Juggernaut, maybe Streamline. I'm going to take Splinter, though. It reduces my rate of fire, but it also does this. Oh, I also have another upgrade. Fabulous. Fusillade. Okay, it also does this. So you can see why I take Splinter. Now, I enjoy Reflect, kind of. It's a really cool thing, and the, like, pale blue turquoise, like light green, I guess. I'm not 100% sure what to say with that color that my weapon gets is nice. However, I'm probably going to swap out my shield at some point over the course of this run. If I get an upgrade pool that I don't really feel like re-rolling, I'm probably going to swap this. Something with a bit more defense, or maybe an offensive presence, would help a lot more, especially when you consider that this is a weapon that all of the damage, all the projectiles are going to do like 10 damage. They're already at 11, and that's really, really small. So, experience also fades over time. I don't really want Halo. So yeah, also, if you ever feel like your build is just a bit, if you've built, let's say you picked a weapon that's nice, but not the weapon you want, and you want to change it out, you can still build towards a thing, and then you can swap out your gear. And when you reroll, it also rerolls this gear here. So I'm probably going to take Guidance. Okay, so my damage isn't too bad just yet. These guys, I would love to show you specifically, but there's nothing on screen except for my bullets. They have drones, and they're a really good example of what a drone build will eventually look like later in the game. So I'm going to take Rapid Fire. Charge Shot with this is a terrible idea, like an absolutely terrible idea. But there's a couple of builds with Charge Shot that are really, really fun, and I've really been enjoying them. So I'm absolutely going to show some of those off later on. Okay, he's dead. But that's, I suppose, like the majority of this build and the rest of it. But like I said, I've been like having so much fun with Overdrift the entire time that I've been playing. And I say the entire time, it's probably only about like maybe, I think, between 8 and 12 hours that I've played so far of it, which is a sizable amount, but it's really fun to be able to... I don't want to quote the blurb directly from the website, but... oh, they're looping. Okay. There we go. It's really fun to be able to have an entire build from creation to inception. From inception to execution, even. Oh, we're back to this boss. You might notice that the boss shows up... I will finish that tangent, I swear. You might notice that the boss has shown up at the same wave. I'm also really sorry if this is like really, really messy. The game has a lot of bright colors, and I like that about it a lot. I love the really, really neon style and the arcade sound effects, but I can understand how it might be a little bit difficult to watch. There we go. And that's the explosion that I was talking about, the one I was really excited for. So I'm probably going to take Warpath. So yeah, like I was saying, the boss doesn't always need to show up on wave 40. There is a boss at wave 40, but it's randomized, or I suppose goes through a pool of bosses. It's not quite randomized, depending on the weapon that you have. And then there are later bosses as well, and a couple of enemies that I will face with this run that I won't face for a sizable amount of time with some other runs. that really help it to feel kind of fresh. And you will be put up against, like, say, a boss that's reasonable for your weapon, and then a boss that's really difficult for your weapon later on. I'm going to take magnetism here. Your boss that's really reasonable for your weapon later on as well, and that's really cool, honestly. It's a small thing, and it really changes the runs out. So, as I was saying, it's really fun to be able to... I've said really a lot this video. I'm also going to take absorption. Finish my tangent first. Check. So... it's really amazing, stop saying really, to be able to incept an entire run and then see it get to fruition over the course of just, I suppose, like 20-30 odd minutes, really. I think my longest run is probably about an hour, and that was like I looped past wave 100, which was really difficult, as you can imagine. And the game gets really hard post 100. So what absorption does is it reduces your damage by hit, on hit, from bullets, or any form of projectile really, by 3 for every subsequent projectile of that type that hits you. And that means really rapid fire, and it can't reduce them past 1 damage, and really rapid fire projectiles that hit you. And there are a couple of enemies that will do that. In fact, there's a lot of enemies that will do that. It's just defense against those, because once you get to a little bit later in the waves, I'm going to be hitting a lot of enemies that deal a lot of rapid fire damage. These are a great example of exactly that, actually. In some of my other runs, these guys have presented massive problems. If you have like a single shot, charge shot type of build, it's just difficult. So this build, I want siege weaponry. I'm absolutely going to take siege weaponry, but not just yet. See, if I take it now, should I just take it now? I'm just going to take it now. This is what siege weaponry does. The issue is, as you might have noticed, I take ramping hull damage as I fire, and my hull regeneration is not where it needs to be to warrant this weapon. Like, at all. This is very much the end game for this build, and as amazing as siege weaponry is, it's extremely dangerous. Like, unbelievably dangerous. To enemies, but also to me. Clearly my throat just did not want me to talk today. Whole lot of coughing. Just, I'm really sorry. Okay, I need to stop. That is way too much per self-damage. So, as amazing as this build might seem, all of a sudden, the power spike that you get from siege weaponry is absolutely unreasonable. I still need so much defense. I'm going to take force armor. I get hull damage resistance, which is really nice. I can't take rapid reconstruction. Might seem nice, greatly improved regeneration rate and 25 base hull strength, but I also have no shield, and I don't want that. I'm going to take force armor. This is going to do 2 things for me. It's going to take force armor out of the pool because it's the end of a tree, which I really want, so I'll have an open space for more upgrades. And also, I get crash damage resistance, and there's a couple of enemies that hit me kind of no matter what I do, or have a habit, especially things like Seraph, and I don't want to get hit and take massive damage. You need to... I don't like this guy. So this is our wave 60 boss. I don't want to be near him for this attack. He's going to fire off waves in like perpendicular to each other, and then, or rather at 45-degree angle, and then spawn a giant energy blade. The orbs around him block all forms of damage, and also deal massive damage to me. And then this is why I enjoy siege weaponry. I think I can kill him before I die? Yeah. Fabulous. I lost a lot of frames. I can only imagine the recording lost a lot of frames there. So I'm sorry for that. Okay, wow, that was actually just great. So I'm going to take shield effect radius, probably. You know what? I don't like these. I'm going to reroll. I still don't like these. Regenerative shields is, in theory, kind of nice. It adds a passive shield regeneration, and so the way shields work currently is... I say currently, I mean for my build. is my shield is going to regenerate on a cooldown. So if I haven't taken damage, the cooldown starts, and when I take damage to my shield, that cooldown stops. And then once my shield goes down, that cooldown works no matter what. And I take hull damage during that time. Shields have a higher defensive rating than your hull, so you'll take less damage through a shield than your hull. And one of the things that I found in the later ones, and kind of why I want to swap out from Reflect as well, it's probably why I'm going to reroll a second time here, is if something can break my shields, I disappear. And I don't like that at all. It's really scary. So I'm going to take shield durability here. And that will keep my shield up for a little bit longer. You can see like a little white bar underneath my shield. That's exactly what that is. And I need to take it handy here, or I'm going to die. I'm going to kill myself, unfortunately. Okay, this is a bad wave. I've encountered this wave a couple times, and I don't like it at all. No, 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 no. These giant hellspawn worms. I'm dead. Okay, so that giant hellspawn worm, he likes to fire a laser if he faces you, and then when you break its head, that destroys it and interrupts the cast. If you break it in a midsection, it spawns a second head and continues on the more you break. And every one of those fires a laser that does the same amount of damage. It's terrifying. But I've unlocked a couple of different things. I got Hullbreaker, which is great. It's for like a Celestial Lance crash damage build and is immense fun, but I also die constantly doing it. I got Hyper Boost power up, so Hyper Boost orbs can now drop from cargo trains. Hyper Boosts are fantastic. They're really, really fun, and I get to be a massive rainbow god. And then Challenge Mode Danger Zone, which we're definitely going to try out soon, as well as Rebirth. So if you feel like you've got a really, really mediocre build going, you just want to change it out, it's just a full run reroll. And also stabilization. So stabilization is really nice for things like a Celestial Lance build. Is actually quite important as well. There's a super mod later on that works with stabilization that fires a massive fire orb in a direction that does unreal damage if you have stabilization and Celestial Lance. And a few other bits and pieces, and that's all of what we got. So you can see I've got a couple of high scores here. I kind of expected that these would reset when I reset my progress, but I guess not. These are some of the builds that I've run in the past. My highest one, I think, is a drone build. Yeah, it was... oh no, sorry, it wasn't. It was a split shot. Of course it was a split shot. Why wouldn't it be a split shot? That was phenomenal. That was like a full-on siege weaponry run with like massive rates of fire and so many different bullets and lots of self-defend, like lots of shielding and lots of hull regen so that I didn't just disappear when I fired. But I'm going to call it there for the episode. And I also want to focus on a different kind of build for the next one. And so pretty really solid place to end it. But this has been phenomenal. If you enjoy Nova Drift and you enjoy my incessant ramblings and definitely over-explaining, come back, subscribe, why not? And I'll catch you in the next one.